Hello folks, just going to do a short video here to give a brief overview of Studio 5000 software. So I've already got a project started. This is the window that you'll see once you create a project. I want to minimize this just for a minute, bring it over here to the side. And here's the things that the quick overview that I want to go over is these items here. There's several more items. There's many things to go over, but these are just some of the things that you will have to know uh, what they are, what they do. You're going to be working in these areas a lot. So we're going to be talking about the online toolbar, this instruction palette area, this controller organizer, talk about rung numbers, and we're going to look at uh, these green rails right here. And you also see over here, that's considered your power rails. So we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to go back over to the Studio 5000 software. And the first thing we'll do is look at this online toolbar. So basically this right here is when we go online. I'm not connected to a controller at this time. You would be able to go to here and switch modes. If you're in remote run, then you would be able to go to program mode or back to run mode if you're in remote physically on the processor chassis. All right, and you can also go online if you have a path set up in your communications tab. Okay, so this right here basically will tell you when you're online. It'll be green and say online. It'll tell you if you have forces enabled or if you have installed in your program. So this right here, forces are when you actually tell an input or an output you want it to be on. You can force it to be on. So no matter what the logic is telling it to do, you can force it into a state that you want it to be in. All right. Edits that there's going to be talking about right here. See, it says online edit status. So if you're doing edits while you're online, this right here will display that right there for you. This right here will show you just like on your PAC on the front of it, the run light. If the run light's on green on the PAC, it'll also show up here green. If the OK light is red or green, whichever way, it'll show up here, and the IO should be green if the IO is okay. And you'll also see this right here will toggle back and forth just like you see what mode it is. And it simulates basically a switch that's on the front of the PAC. And it may not look exactly like what you have on your PAC, but it represents a switch. And you'll see that right there toggle back and forth as well. All right, so that's really the things I need to tell you about this area. We'll be using this area right here the most. That's what you'll use the most out of all of that. To get to your properties for your controller, you can either go to here and click on this tab here. It looks like a little controller. Or you can go down to here where this should be where it says controller. This name here is the name of your project that when you first make a project, this is the name that you had given it right here. So your controller is called that. So you double click on that and it should open up a tab, and it goes into your properties. At this time, if you wanted to, you could change the name of your file if you wanted to. If you didn't like what you named it, or if you want to make a copy of it, you can make a copy of it, but you got to name it something different. So normally I put like a rev1 underscore rev1 after that. If I want to take the same things I've already done, but I want to make additions to it or changes to it, and before I validate that they're good changes, I usually always work with a good copy of my file so I don't lose it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this controller organizer area. So remember, anytime you see a minus sign like this, it means that it is expanded and this minus sign means that it collapses. So anything, it's almost like an outline. Everything underneath here that's expanded, this will collapse it. If you see a plus sign, it's going to expand it. So sometimes when you open up your software, it may not be all expanded. And that's the reason why I want you to know that, is so that you don't get like, oh, I don't see all those things that you're talking about. Well, you always need to know what the main topic is, the header is for each area. So right here is going to be about the controller. These are tasks, motion groups. I mean, you can read the names. So we won't be working in all these, but you will need to expand where it says controller. You will need to expand where it says tasks. And if we will be looking at the IO configuration. We won't be using any additional um, configurations, meaning we're not going to be adding any additional IO. But if you remember when I talked to you about embedded IO, the PAC that we have, which is this 1769 L24ER, has embedded IO. So basically, it has the inputs and outputs already embedded in the controller. So we don't have to set up our IO configuration because it's auto-populated based off the controller we had. Okay? Now, if we had added extra input or output cards, then we would have had to have come here and we would have had to have added that in to this IO configuration tab, which we don't, so we won't be going over that. So this is the only thing I want you to see in this IO configuration. Other than that, you won't have to do anything in there. So controller tags is where you're going to set up the tags within your project. And because we selected our controller, the 1769-L24ER that we did, it automatically knows and auto-populates the inputs and outputs that are available. So these tag names you do not have to make because they're already made for you. Alright, and over here it shows you a data type, AB embedded, discrete, and remember, discrete means zeros and ones. Okay, it's going to be hard inputs, zeros and ones. Analog, that there means it can be a different value other than 0 or 1. And it can be 0, 1, 2, 3, and depending on the data table size, is the only thing that limits it. Okay, and you also got a high-speed counter slot in this controller. So just to let you know, in the further videos, I will show you how to make more tags, and there's two different ways that you can make them, and I'll show you both ways in that. Okay. The next thing is that you need to understand this hierarchy of the tasks. So if we go under task, so it's task, then you're going to see another plus sign. You're going to hit that. Then you're going to see program, main program. Then you're going to see main routine. So what I want you to understand is that there's 3 tiers to this. You're going to have tasks, and you can have more than one task. Right now we just have a main task. So it is defaulted. This is already defaulted for you. So it has to have a task to start with, so it defaults it to a main task, and you can add more. And then from there, from the main task, as you can see the little dotted line, it comes down to a program, and you can have more than one program. And then you'll have routines inside of each program. So I want you to understand that. You're going to have a task, that's the first step. Then you're going to have a program. Then you're going to have a routine inside that program. And you can have multiple routines. And you'll see that there as we get into labs. Okay? So if we just double click on this main routine, this is how we come up with our logic window. And in the, I'll show you this. If you look at this, you'll see that it looks green. Now this right here was a screenshot of some logic that was in edit mode. So what I want you to notice is that it's green up here, it's green here, but it's not here. Well, when it's in edit mode, these eyes indicate the rung that you're changing, because if you look at this rung and this rung, they look the same. And that's because at this point in time they were. So this is the rung that you're working with, that you're changing. This right here is a copy of that same rung. So while you're editing, it's running the previous version here. That's why it's green. It has the R's for running. And this up here is gray, meaning it's not actually executing at the time. So once you make your changes to this rung, then you will hit accept those edits with this green arrow, and then this rung will replace this rung, and the I's and R's will go away, and then you'll have a fully solid green line. And you're only going to see those green lines. These power rails will only be green when you're actually online with the processor. All right. So as you can see, I'm not online with my processor, so I'm not going to have green power rails. I want you to see this 0. That there is the first rung number. So remember, we start almost everything is going to start with 0. So just try to keep that in mind. So this right here is where your rung numbers are going to be. So every time you add a rung, it's going to put a rung number in. And so this is rung 0, rung 1, rung 2, rung 3. This rung here is actually not even a rung. It just shows that this is the end of this routine. So it'll be black and you can't put nothing in it. Okay, so this here is the logic window. These right here would be the power rails, and they would be turned green. This one and this side here would be green if you were online. Okay, these right here are the rung numbers. You need to remember that. Okay, the next area, and yours is going to look a little bit different than mine, but we'll make them look the same once we get into the software a little more, and we'll add your favorites. But the first ones we'll be going over is going to be the input instructions. And the two input instructions are this examine if on, which is an XIC, and this right here is an XIO. Remember, normally open is an XIC, normally closed is an XIO. So these bit ones here, and always remember bit 0 and 1, 0 and 1. Okay, so this is your instruction palette. So if you look there, I've got favorites set up, where I've got all the ones I use the most set up on mine. And every time you go to a tab, you get another set of instructions that are available to you. So you see in the bit level, then you're going to see these input instructions here, and you're going to see these output instructions here. We're going to be using some one-shots, which means that it only sees the logic as true on the initial scan of when it went true. Timers and counters, that's going to be a big one. Compare instructions we're going to be using. Compute and math. Some move instructions we'll be using, this MOV. So we'll be using several of these things. So this video right here isn't to explain how all that stuff works and how to put them in and all that. I just want to make you familiar with the different areas. The only other area that is not in this screenshot is this here. This is probably the one area between file and saving as, just to making sure that you're saving every so often. You'd go to file, but the other area that we'll be working in is communications, and under who active. And this is where we'll actually go in and set up a path. Even though we've already got our RS links set up, you actually have to go into your communications and set up that path that's already made through RS links you actually have to reestablish that here in Studio 5000 before you communicate. And we'll go through that in lab, but just want to make you aware of that. I'm not connected to anything, so it ain't going to populate anything for me. Uh, so that's it on this one, and I hope that you got something out of this, and I'll have further videos to go a little further. Thanks.